Why hello. Disclaimer. Viewer discretion is advised. This video is PG-13 for sure, as we're talking about sexual stuff. Hence the title and the thumbnail. I mean, obviously. Why did you click this if you knew you weren't supposed to? I have another video here. You can watch that instead. Also, while there is going to be some level of depth, I do want to say that I am not intending for this video to be a fully deep discussion that answers the question per se. Rather, this video is to present what I think the answer is, and then start a conversation. Anyway, so I was meditating in bed, by which I mean I was up till 3 a.m. scrolling through Twitter, and of course, the internet being the internet, there were pretty ladies, for lack of a better term. But specifically of the Pokemon variety, Poke Girls as they're called. And Softcore Rule 34. And yes, I'm acting as if I had only just discovered all of this to feign innocence and not give you the idea that I've known about it for years, of course. But this time, rather than share these images with my wife, as we do sometimes because it's really fun, totally healthy relationship, this time the images made me realize something. Compared to just about every other video game or anime or cartoon or whatever, Pokemon just has so much more of this kind of sexualization stuff. Not the bad kind of sexualization, which is rare, but it exists. But like, just sexy art. There's so much sexy art. Nothing comes even close in terms of sheer quantity. There has to be several factors at play here, because it can't just be one thing that Pokemon does really well that attracts all of this attention of this way. It's got to be like the perfect concoction, the perfect mixture. And thus spawned this video idea. So let's talk all about it. We're all mature here. I mean, most of my audience is of age anyway, according to the analytics, though anyone can lie when making an account. So first, let's cover the most obvious factor. Pokemon is the biggest media franchise in the world. It is, though. I mean, in terms of revenue. I mean, the games, the spin-off games, the anime, the manga, the annual movies, all the merchandise, the card game, just so much. So clearly being the biggest bit of media would mean it would have the biggest amount of this kind of stuff, right? But even considering that, the sheer volume is exponentially larger than what that alone would cause. So let's go deeper. There are a few things about the Pokemon franchise specifically, as well as psychology, that all come together to make the perfect concoction. The characters, the art style, the timing, and of course, the furry aspect. So first of all, Pokemon, compared to most cartoons and anime, have a load more characters. So many characters. Egad, there's not just something for everyone, there's a lot of things and characters that appeal to different types of people. And I don't just mean all the Pokemon, I mean the human characters, the gym leaders, the side characters, just constant new people, each appealing to a different demographic of taste. And then, into the Pokemon themselves, there's stuff for every level of furry. Furries, in case you don't know, are a fairly large group of people, and they can be fairly vocal on the internet. Makes the group seem like they're a lot bigger than what they actually are, but still. Forever ago, I asked what makes a furry in this video here, but it's over here, I'm terrible, and it got a load of support. It's kind of sad, but it was surprising to a lot of people, a lot of furry people, that a non-furry is taking them somewhat seriously and actually analyzing them as a group honestly without hostility. It's really sad that that's a surprising thing. Anyway, one thing that's great about furries is that they are very artistically inclined. So many make such great art. I can't tell you the number of times I found an artist I like somewhere, and so I check out their profile page and it like 80% of their art is anthropomorphic animals. Furries. Even though that's not what the art I found was, because I'm not a furry, but like, I still can appreciate good art. Anyway, the most popular furry characters on those kinds of fur sites tends to be Lucario, Renamon, Gardevoir, Lopunny, and then various Disney characters. Notice how 3 of the top 5 are Pokemon. Then, there are loads more Pokemon in the top 20, top 50 even. And as of late, I feel the Pokemon Company is becoming self-aware of all this, as recently, when dreaming about having a good time, Meowth in an episode of Pokemon dreamed about hanging out with a Gardevoir and a Lopunny. They are totally self-aware, especially considering that more and more often, we seem to be getting more and more Pokemon designs that seem perfect for fursuits. The things furries wear to cons. Like cosplay, but commonly it's original characters. But not always. Sometimes it's like a Pokemon. Look at these two Pokemon. They are like furry incarnate. And they're both from the most recent generation. So of course, Pokemon is giving a bit of fan service, which is only encouraging all of this. But that's fairly recent. And also, it does not explain all of the human art of varying levels of ecchi. So clearly there's more digging to do, and puzzle piece number 2 is less about the Pokemon and more about the people, specifically the art style of such people, and simultaneously the timing of Pokemon when it came out, and what generation of people it appealed to. Now, in general, just take a look at all of the biggest 90s and early 2000s cartoons. Besides a few exceptions, almost every single one follows a number of things. They either feature animals, anthropomorphic animals, or humans that are heavily stylized. And I mean heavily. I mean, that's the beauty of animation after all. You can do that and it's great. Now there were a few shows that had realistic humans for sure, but they were far and few between and more often than not featured the more manly superhero stuff, cartoons like X-Men and Batman. While they did have their share of pretty ladies and sexual moments, they were never a big part of it. Or at least, they were rarely that. Compare that to Pokemon. Look at Misty's outfit. Think about the 12-year-old boys. Plus, another point to make is that X-Men and Batman had several iterations, so many reboots and series. Pokemon played pretty consistent with its art style and story, creating even more connection. Not to mention that anime in general had much more realistic proportions of people, especially extremely fit and well-built people, skinny people, because almost everyone is fit and healthy in Japan, where anime is produced. And out of all of the anime, Pokemon was by far the most popular, even more so than most cartoons. And if you watched my old video on furries, then you know this already, but around the age of puberty, our brains begin seeking out sexual stimuli. We start to feel attraction to others, especially the healthier and happier of us. More often than not, hot means healthy and or will make better offspring. At least in terms of how our lizard brains perceive things. But during this time of our lives, we are very influenceable, and considering how much TV and movies we were watching at the time, it's no wonder that the commonly believed theory, that I totally agree with, is that Disney pretty much made furries. The current furry phenomenon? You can blame that on Disney. I mean, think of all of the well-produced and well-proportioned anthropomorphic animal characters there are in Disney media, which of course spawned other companies to make the same thing. Heck, sometimes a character doesn't even have to be anthropomorphic. Nala from The Lion King tends to be cited as the awakening moment for some kids due to the context and the lioness bedroom eyes. It was weird. Nothing against being weird though. For many though, it doesn't happen with anthro characters. Or it will, but the fact that they are anthro gets lost, and only points them more towards the well-proportioned human figure. But considering how crazy Pokemon Fever was back in Gen 1, and considering Misty's outfit, and for many it was the first cartoon with realistic proportions, well, the pieces fall together. Considering that everyone who grew up on Gen 1 Pokemon while it was airing is now an adult, many of whom are now artists, it's no wonder that most of these bits of art that are this way are of the human characters, especially Misty, the Gen 1 human lady. And all of this isn't even considering the games. Though they may be pixelated, the human proportions, when given the chance, are still pretty dang perfect. And then you go to the beach in Hoenn and... oh geez, bikinis. Pixelated bikinis. It was Gen 3 for me. A lot of people would then point the finger at Game Freak for doing all these terrible things of having realistically proportioned people, but I mean, no ill intent was made. And it's not like the games and anime are ever inherently sexual, besides a very occasional adult joke, of course, but every cartoon has those. At least the good ones. But all of this has a side effect of having the target audience that you do. 8 to 15 is a very important age for brain development. And even if you have something totally innocent, like a standard person that happens to be fit. The brain of someone in that target range, seeking out to learn about sexuality, will latch on to anything it gets. It's just a fact of life. And stripping away everything so that your child doesn't get corrupted leads to mental health issues, as well as teen pregnancy and incest. Because, as mentioned, the brain will latch onto anything. And if it's devoid of that anything besides a schoolmate, or siblings and cousins, that's what it's going to latch onto. Why do you think teen pregnancy and incest are the most common in the most religious and conservative states? The ones that shelter their kids the most and don't give them the talk as often. Anyway, we're getting off topic. Or were we? What's the topic? Right, Pokeprons. I mean, loads of people will always have their first cartoon crushes and such. And Pokemon being as big as it is, and having the pull it does, and having just the right art style at just the right time, you know, 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 equals a generation of adult artists whose first fictional crushes happened to be from Pokemon. Those characters always will hold a special place in their heart. And sometimes, we don't even realize it until years later that we had such a connection. And by the time that realization is made, you're now an adult, so your brain functions differently. Different desires, however healthy or unhealthy they may be. So, that's my theory as to why Pokemon is overly sexualized on the internet. Or perfectly sexualized. It's all a matter of perspective. And also, that's, like I said, just my idea of why I think it is. What do you think, though? Do you agree or disagree with me? Let me know down in the comments what you think and your theories. And please be nice. We all need to be nice more often in the comments. Also, Twitter, Discord, I got both of those. We can chat there. Woo! Links, description. And until next time, never stop using your noggin. Can't wait for the demonetization.